So are we all set, Kim? I can go ahead.
You are all set, Patrick. Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your kind introduction. Thanks to all you folks who are attending. This is kind of strange to be talking to a TV screen that only has my picture and my slides on it. I am a physical therapist. I've been a physical therapist for 50 years. I got involved with aging about 20 years ago. And later in that time, I got involved with people who had Parkinson's disease. And for the last 5 years, have only been seeing people who have Parkinson's disease, and been executive director of Empower Parkinson, Inc., which is a 501c3 not-for-profit who provides services exclusively for people with Parkinson's disease. In a sense, Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disease, but it can be thought of as compressed aging. In some sense, all of us have a neurodegenerative disease of that is really called aging. As we age, our nervous system does degenerate, and the nervous system drives the whole body. And that is true with Parkinson's disease. We think of it as being just a motor loss, but Parkinson's disease affects the whole nervous system. So there's cognitive dysfunction, there's digestive, cardiopulmonary dysfunction. All of the nervous system is affected by the disease, as is our aging process. So what we want to talk about tonight is how we mitigate that aging process, and how you have the potential to actually age backwards or be younger next year, and do that through exercise. I'm hopeful at the end of this talk that you'll be able to understand how strength plays a role in the aging process and how important that is. Also, that you're able to look at any exercise program at all, and understand the criteria for whether that exercise program will be successful for you. Then I want you to be able to identify what actually are strengthening exercises, and then be able to have strategies to start and to stick with an exercise program. Exercise is, in fact, probably the most powerful intervention that there is in medicine. It's really much more powerful than any pill. It's much more powerful than any kind of surgery. If you look at the literature, exercise plays a role in almost every single disease process. And the role it plays is a beneficial role. So you can talk about any disease process, from arthritis to cardiopulmonary types of disease, the whole list, diabetes, cognitive dysfunction. Exercise plays a role in mitigating those diseases. There is no pill that has that broad of an application or surgery. Unfortunately, it's probably also one of the least used interventions that there is in medicine. Probably fewer than 20% of people consistently do exercise at a level that causes a change within their body. And the other thing, I think one of our shortfalls is that we often tell people to go exercise, and we tell people how important exercise is. And if I were able to actually see all you people and have you raise your hands and ask you if you thought exercise was important, I'm sure that 90 to 100% of you would raise your hand and say, I think it absolutely is important. But to be able to differentiate what exercise is important is a whole different matter, because all exercise is not created equal. And part of what we'll discuss tonight is that concept. So, benefits of aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise is an exercise that makes you get out of breath a little bit. So, walking quickly, going upstairs, hiking, skiing, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, anything that challenges the cardiovascular system is aerobic exercise. And there's many benefits of them. And I'm sure you've all heard, it reduces the risk of dying prematurely, dying from heart disease. If you've had a first heart attack, it decreases your risk for a second one. It lowers bad cholesterol, increases good cholesterol. It helps you maintain your cognitive function, lowers blood pressure in people who already have hypertension, reduces the risk of developing hypertension. The bottom line is aerobic exercise increases your cardiovascular function, and it increases the quantity of your life. It determines how much longer you are going to live. So when your doctor tells you, you need to start exercising, is it he wants you to go out and walk, or does he want you to go lift weights? Or should you be stretching? Or should you be working on coordination types of activity? What is it that you want to accomplish? And in this category of aerobic exercise, if he is suggesting aerobic exercise, he's looking at your ability to live a longer life. Strengthening program, we'll go right to the bottom of this one, improves or maintains the quality. It helps you to live better.
You want to see some of this?
So it reduces your chances of falling. It improves your balance, decreases your risk for diabetes, helps maintain the integrity of your joints, which includes, fighting back against either osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. It helps you move better. It helps you move more quickly, helps you be able to maintain both function and recreation. It increases what's known as reserve. Every day we use our ability to work up to a certain level, but typically we have some reserve. And occasionally when we have to work harder, we can call on that reserve. If you're exercising and building strength on a regular basis, you increase how much reserve you have and increase your capability to work harder, longer when it's needed. And it prevents frailty. So again, aerobic exercises increases your quantity of life, how long you're going to live. Strengthening exercise increases the quality of life, how well you live. And I think that, people can define successful aging very subjectively. It is different for everybody. But, typically it includes something about being able to maintain your functional level. And if that is true, then you really want to be looking at strengthening exercises. Either aerobic exercise or strengthening exercises improves your mental processes. So it promotes psychological well-being, decreases depression, decreases anxiety. If you're doing exercises in a group, it increases socialization. It improves cognitive function. You can use it to help control weight, but only as a help. You really need diet to actually control weight. And exercise decreases your risk of certain cancers, including colon cancer. And why is it that we even need to talk about exercise in this day and age? And I guess this day and age is why we have to talk about exercise. Probably starting somewhere after World War II. technology began to impact our life. And our goal of technology, for the most part, as it applied to our life, was to make our lives easier, so that we move towards having machines do things for us. Push buttons for remote for a TV, remote for your door, having a remote telephone that you put in your pocket. You don't have to get up and go answer the phone. You have a vacuum cleaner that you put on the floor, and it vacuums your house for it. So at that time, we thought easier was better. But what technology actually did was induce inactivity. So we became a much more sedentary society. And we also created a perception that easy is better. And I'll hear that frequently from patients who say, oh, that's too hard. Well, when it comes to exercise, hard is actually better. So we have this easier lifestyle with the unintended consequence of creating a sedentary lifestyle, which leads to more disability. And it's pretty clear that sedentary lifestyle does do that. And we've had it going at the same time an improvement in medical care, because again, technology has also affected medical care. So the quality of our medical care has allowed us to live longer. But again, the unintended consequence is that we're living longer with more disability. And clearly, I doubt in my career that I've ever talked to anybody who looked forward to going into a nursing home. But society has actually created a system that leads to people ending up having to go in a nursing home because of living longer and being more sedentary and losing their functional abilities. Here's what's known as slippery slope of aging. Vigor, or your ability to work and be active, is on the left-hand side of the scale. Across the bottom is just theoretically age. And we go through these 4 categories during our life: fun, function, frailty, and failure. Fun, in my definition, is being able to do what you want, when you want to do it, for as long as you want to do it. And I think most people would say, people who do what they want whenever they want to do it for as long as they want to do it are generally younger people. And so this has us going out to the age of 50 or 60, and being able to do that. But then at some point, we start using our vigor just to perform function. We go to work and work tires us out, so we do less recreational activities. And we start to choose things that we do because we're too tired, that we don't have the functional capability to do everything we want to do when we want to do it. And eventually, we continue down that slope where it leads to failure or frailty, where we start to become dependent on people to do things for us. And at first, it may be heavier things, carrying in the groceries, shoveling the sidewalk, things like that. But later on, it becomes activities of daily living. You may need help getting out of bed, dressing, toileting, bathing, things like that. And of course, the end result is failure, at some age. Now, this is a theoretical slope. And of course, nobody is exactly on this slope. The slope that we want to be on, well, first, we get to control the slope that we're on. And I think, my successful aging is to stay in the fun category all the way out to 90. being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it for as long as I want to do it, and then maybe get sick and live a short period of time and end up in failure. So going across that curve, right straight across the top, and then at the end, having a very precipitous drop off. And that's one extreme. And that extreme incorporates a very active lifestyle, staying functional, keeping doing things, not becoming sedentary. So the other end of that is a scale that starts at 100 and drops down pretty precipitously in young age, and maybe being down to function at the age of 40, down to frailty at 50, and failure at 60. And people in that category tend to be very sedentary people, sedentary and obese, and weak. I mean, frailty, loss of function, that all suggests weakness. And normal aging, and that's not typical aging, normal aging, we lose about 1% of our strength starting at the age of 30. So you can do the math pretty quickly. If you now are 70 years old and you're aging normally, you've probably lost about 40% of your strength. And, if you look at this curve, to function every day, we need somewhere between 30 and 50% of our strength. All the strength above 50, that's what I talked about in terms of reserve. And we talked about building reserve, and that means staying in that fun category for as long as you possibly can. But the people who fall into those categories early are not maintaining their strength. So instead of only losing 1% per year, if you're very sedentary, you may be losing 2 or 3 or 4% a year. And if you're losing 3% starting at the age of 30 and you're now 70, you've lost, 90% of your strength because of sedentary lifestyle. When I say we get to choose, if we are very active and not sedentary and we maintain our level, we can decrease that loss of strength from 1% to 0.25%, a quarter of a percent per year. So now, over a 40-year period, we've only lost 10% of our strength. And we're still up in that fun category at the very top. We're able to do whatever we want to do, when we want to do it, for as long as we want to do it. So that's the old adage that you'll hear people say, that I'd really prefer to die young at a very old age. It's maintaining that fun level that's associated with youth across the whole top of that scale till your demise at the very end and the precipitous drop off. When I said you lose 1% of strength per year, average Americans also start to gain 1 pound per year starting at the age of 30. So you're decreasing your strength, but you're increasing the load on your body. So again, if you look at 70, you've lost 40% of your strength and increased your weight by 40 pounds. So your ride on this slippery slope has probably fallen out of fun and dropping down into the function or maybe frailty category. So, how do you fight back against that? You really increased physical activity. Now, physical activity is kind of the broad category. Physical activity is everything we do. Exercise is one form of physical activity. Walking might be physical activity, gardening, house cleaning, any of those, it's all called physical activity. Exercise is a structured type of physical activity that has goals and very specific program to reach those goals. But the way to start out, if you're sedentary, particularly sedentary, it really is increase your physical activity. I have seen people in the clinic who are really sitting or laying down in bed probably 23 hours a day. They may be walking from the bedroom or the couch into the bathroom or into the kitchen to eat meals or use the bathroom. And that's about the extent of the time that they're upright. So those people are getting significantly weaker. So the idea would be that physical activity actually dominates your day. So instead of sitting or laying down 23 hours a day, you're really active for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, where you're up and moving around and doing things. And I think it means that you always are looking for opportunities to do something. So, taking the stairs instead of an elevator. When you go to the store, instead of driving around for 10 minutes to look for the closest parking spot, you really go to the end of the parking lot, increase your physical activity by walking into the store. And then when you take the cart out, instead of looking for the nearest place to drop it off, you walk the cart all the way back into the store. Watching TV, you get up, you walk around the room for the whole time of the commercial is on, or you do sit the stands that we'll talk about in a little bit, 10 times during each commercial break. But the whole idea is to decrease your sedentary lifestyle. Walk the dog 2, 3, 4 times a day. Well, just walk yourself. Do more gardening. Find things to do to increase your physical activity. What about talking to your doctor about permission to exercise? So yeah, if you have significant medical problems, yeah, you should ask them. But I'm guessing again that 90 to 100% of people listening to me right now, their doctors have told them you got to start exercising. And really, if you look at the medical literature, in view of the evidence for the benefits of exercise, and the amount of disability and mortality that's associated with a sedentary life, it's probably would be more important to ask your doc if you don't have to exercise. And very few docs would ever say to you, yeah, I don't want you exercising. They all tell you, you got to start exercising. Again, we talked about increasing your physical activity. So now we're moving to one kind of physical activity, which is exercise. And we're moving to one type of exercise, which is strengthening. So I already mentioned aerobic exercise. So aerobic exercise is something you get a little out of breath doing. We're not going to spend much time on that, but there's aerobic exercise, there's strengthening exercise, flexibility exercise, coordination exercise, balancing activities. So you have to match what you want to achieve with the type of exercise you want to do. And you remember we started off saying that function is associated with strength. So if you want to stay functional and you want to improve the quality of life, what you want to be doing is strengthening exercises. If you want to live longer, you want to be doing aerobic exercise. If you want to improve your balance, you have to do balancing exercises. There's a crossover here because probably 70 or 80% of balancing exercises are actually strengthening exercises. To have good balance, you have to have good ankle strength. So you have to do strengthening of your ankles. You want to be more flexible, you have to do flexibility exercises. So if you're going to start an exercise program, Start low, go slow, commit to the long term. You're not going to achieve anything this week or next week. What you want to achieve is having done something on a regular basis. So you want to do exercise 3 times a week this week and commit to it and stick to it. And then maybe 4 times and then maybe 5 times a week to increase that. And start slow, 10 minutes 3 times a week, but gradually build that up to 30 minutes. And you can do any of the exercises to start, but at some point you got to point yourself in the direction of strengthening exercises. You can use, so if you're doing 5 times a week, 3 times a week you do strengthening. Twice a week you do aerobic exercise. Twice a week you do stretching exercises, so you don't get bored doing them. And my suggestion to people, join a group. Group exercise, I think, is the best thing for doing exercises and maintaining that exercise program. The socialization and the commitment to the group goes a long ways to keep you doing what you should be doing to attain the goals that you set for yourself. Here are your goals. So strengthening or resistive exercises 2 to 3 times a week. You have to do strengthening at least twice a week to get a strength. You have to apply a strengthening stimulus, a certain amount, if you're going to make those muscles strong. Aerobic exercise 3 to 5 times, recreational every day, and flexibility exercises. These are set out by the government, suggested exercise for older adults. Strengthening is probably the best place to start. So it tires you out less and you get more bang for your buck. You're going to get more improvement and you're going to feel it sooner. It's going to build muscle mass that supports the joints. And so if you try to do aerobic exercise, you're going to have less risk of developing joint pain, particularly if you have arthritis. We've already said that strength directly relates to function. Strength gives you the most return on investment. You get some aerobic effect from strengthening. You get some flexibility effect. You'll get some balancing effect from strengthening. So you get a lot from strengthening. Whereas if you're doing aerobic and you're doing flexibility, you're probably not going to get a strengthening effect. It has the potential to reduce obesity. It can decrease back pain, and that goes up above. It improves joint integrity. Everything in the body is absorption and dissipation of forces. I assume that most of you are sitting down right now, and it's what you learned in high school physics, that every activity has an equal and opposite force. So as you sit down in your chair, you're pushing down into the chair with the force of your body weight. The chair to support you is pushing back up into your body with the force of your body weight. And that force has to be absorbed in your body some way. That is what the soft tissue does. That's what muscles, ligaments, joint capsule, collagen tissue, connective tissue, that all absorbs and dissipates force. If the tissue cannot absorb and dissipate that force, the tissue becomes irritated. That's pain. The answer to treating the pain is to toughen the tissues. It's kind of the blister and callus. You gradually make the tissue work harder, so you develop callus so you can apply more force to it without it hurting. Strengthening exercise improves depression and improves sleep habit. And for women who are concerned about osteoporosis, it builds bone. You have to put pressure on the bones to increase the quantity of the bone. So you can't do sitting down exercises. You can't do exercises in the pool and expect to improve osteoporosis. You have to have weight-bearing, resistive exercise to build bone.
Hey, Patrick, this is Kimberly.
Yes, Kim.
Can you give us an example of a strength building exercise other than weightlifting? I'm not sure. For instance, like
Oh, yeah.
I know, for
Absolutely.
instance, yoga can help with strength, balance, and flexibility, but I don't know what it is that you're referring to specifically with resistance.
Okay, so resistance can be weight, it can be elastic tubing, it can be your body weight. Lifting your body weight is resistive exercise. So if you look at the slide that I just went to, examples: sit to stand, squats, lunges, heel raises, modified push-ups. They're all examining. You're trying to make the muscle work at a level it's not typically working at. So if you take, for example, the sit to stands, if you can stand easily up from a chair without using your hands, you know, you're strong, that you have good strength. But if you go to get up and you immediately put your arms on the chair to help push you up, that's an indication of leg weakness. So if you need your hands to get up, you can go ahead and stand up using your hands, but then you can sit down very, very slowly. And you'll work hard to do that. That's resistive exercise.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And that the whole point of what we've been talking about mostly is one of the criteria for effective exercise, and that's specificity. So again, if you want to get more flexible, you do flexibility. If you want to get stronger, you do strengthening. If you want to do aerobic capacity, you do aerobic exercise. That's all specificity. That's the first criteria, to match the exercise with the outcome that you want to get. The second criteria is intensity. So you have to apply a load, a stimulus to the tissue that's at least 60% of what the tissue can maximally do, or at least a load that the tissue is not used to doing. So that's strengthening requires overload, working harder. And it can be challenging to figure out how you do that. But we'll talk about some of the examples here. Sit to stand is probably one of the classic examples. Leg strength is extremely important as we age. So that exercise that I just talked about, going from sit to stand, and if you can do it easily, to create an overload, you would have to hold a weight or use an elastic band and step on it. And as you would stand up, you would stretch that elastic band, or you would stand up faster, or you would do more repetitions. Can you see how that results in overload? Making the muscle work harder. That's what causes the strengthening. Now, the bottom line of, we talked about it, nobody I've ever met who wanted to go into a nursing home. The bottom line of going into a nursing home typically is loss of leg strength. People, if they can function at home, if they can get out of a chair, if they can get off the toilet, if they can get out of bed, they can walk around, they can continue to function at home. But once you lose that ability, you're on that, path into the nursing home, where you need somebody to help you get out of bed, somebody to toilet, somebody to bathe. And that typically just relates to leg strength. So if you want a prolonged admission into a nursing home, 30 sit to stands a day is a guarantee or your money back. So the overload are the balls, the weights, machines, elastic bands. For balance, it's compliant surfaces also. So again, this, if you take the sit to stand one, and you can easily get up out of the chair, if you take a pillow or a cushion off of one of your chairs, put it under your feet, and then try to stand up, that's overload. That makes it harder to stand. And that makes the muscles work harder so that you get a strengthening effect. How do you know if you're working at a level difficult enough? Typically, we want you to be able to do about 10 repetitions of whatever that is. If you can go on forever doing what we tell you to do, you know, that's probably not a strengthening effect. It's more endurance effect. So, and if you can't do 8, that's too much overload. We have to find a way to make that easier for you. And we'll talk about that, and we'll come back to it with questions too. The other way is for you to subjectively define how hard that exercise is. And you need to be somewhere around 16 on this scale. This is called the Borg scale of perceived exertion. So you want to be someplace where you're describing that exercise as hard, a little hard, slightly hard, fairly hard. You know, if you're saying it's light, it's easy, it's not too difficult, it's probably not enough of a stimulus to change. Remember, I went way back in the beginning talking about our goal is to make our life easier, you know, and then hard was a bad thing. With exercise, it's dose specific. You get the best return the harder the exercise is. You know, on the upside of that, you know, if you're working too hard, you're increasing your risk for injury. So you gotta pick that area around 15, 16, where you're saying, oh yeah, it's hard. I can do it, but it's hard. You know, if you're getting up in very hard or very, very hard, you're probably starting to increase your risk for injuries. Let me see here. You want me to take some questions, Kim, before I finish, or go ahead and keep going and finish?
Yeah, if anyone has a question, you can certainly unmute yourself and ask a question. But I will say that I just did 30. Well, I didn't do them all together, but I did 30 sit to stands, and the first 10 were not, I mean, I could do them, but it was a little bit difficult. And actually, by the third time, it did get a little bit easier, which is interesting. So, because I don't do those too often, except when I'm getting up, you know. To go.
and then, Kim, one of the ways to make that more difficult for you would be to have you do the 30 of them in 30 seconds.
Oh dear. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give that
so
a
you
whirl.
see how you'd be working that much harder. All right. That's one way. The other way would you would have to sit down. It would take you 5 seconds to sit down.
Oh, okay.
So you can either go faster or slower, and that'll make it harder for you. And that's true of most strengthening exercises. If you go fast, you're going to move that weight at what's comfortable for your body. So if you want to make it harder, do it more quickly or do it more slowly.
Has anyone done the sit to stand while we're on this class by any chance? Just curious, besides me. Come on. No.
See, if we were in person, you'd all be doing it.
I know.
We'd all be trying it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did. I've also gotten out of my chair and been walking around while you do this.
Way to go, Dottie. Okay. I know. That's how I felt. I said, gosh, I can't sit here. I better get up. I better do my sit to stand. Good way to go, Dottie. By the way, we will be looking to do this class in person, but probably not till the fall. I think it would be really beneficial to do in person, and Patrick is just so fabulous. And I think, you know, it would benefit everyone. So, you know, we'll make sure everybody knows when that's happening. So.
I really do like looking at your faces when I teach.
Yeah, it is so much better.
So let me go back. Let me make sure I get, oh yeah, so you understand the Borg scale of procedure. So here's, if you look at these, and or if you want to try, if you want to stand up and try these right now, have a chair that you can hold on to. And these are improving balance through strengthening exercises. So let me think. Yeah, they're all, the left ankle is doing all the work in these exercises. And all you're doing, balance is all about base of support. So it's maintaining your erect posture over your base of support. So anytime you reach or move your leg outside your base of support, you're going to have to work harder at your ankle to maintain your balance. So if you're standing up right now and you're holding on just a little bit and you move your leg out to the side, you'll see that immediately you have to work harder to maintain your balance. Or if you lift your leg up, particularly if you lift your leg way up high, you'll see that you start to wobble on that ankle. And that's a measure of intensity too. When we do balancing, we want the ankle to wobble a little bit. If you're holding on so much that you don't get any wobble in your ankle's not working. So you got to decrease how much you're holding on. The other component of balance is that strengthening is part of it, but the other part of balance is motor control. And it turns out that that's just like a sports activity. So if you want to learn how to play tennis or hit a golf ball, that's not an easy thing to do. And you'll see on this slide, it says you need 50 hours of challenging balance to improve your balance. And that would be true if you want to improve your golf swing. You have to work on it over and over again to create motor pathways that you use then to perform the activity. That should not be discouraging to you. That should be a challenge to you and also a motivator for you to start to work on balance. And balance, you're standing at the stove, balance on one foot a little bit while you're waiting for the water to boil. Or you're brushing your teeth, you try to stand on one foot. Or you're in the grocery store and you got the cart in front of you. Your hands just resting lightly, balance on one foot, balance on the other foot. Take opportunities to challenge your balance. And this is called static balance. The other balance is dynamic balance, the balance that we need when we walk. So something like tandem walking, where you put one foot right in front of the other, that challenges dynamic balance. Or I think, no, I don't have any slides of that, I don't believe. Here are leg strengthening exercises. So that the picture on the left is a sit to stand. So coming up quicker or sitting down slower makes it harder. A lower surface makes it harder. And toilets tend to be the lowest surface in your house, unless you have new toilets that are now raised up quite a bit higher. The top picture on the right-hand side is a lunge with the arms overhead. And that challenges not only strength, but that challenges balance. And then down below is a lunge without the hands overhead. If you just squatted without the chair behind you, that's a squat. Standing on one leg, doing a deep knee bend, that challenges both balance and strength in the quads. Putting your foot up on a stair and lifting your body weight up, not putting your second foot on the stair, but just lifting it off the floor and back down, that challenges strength. These are all core strength. The importance of core strength, everything works off the core. So your arms work off the core, your legs work off the core, and your arms and legs can only be as strong as your core stabilizes so that they can work. So this is called a bird dog up on top. Over on the right is a plank, and the bottom one's an abdominal exercise, holding the arms and the legs up. And then these are similar to the first exercises we did with progression. So, and instead of doing that sit to stand, we call that one on the left-hand side skaters. You skate, and then you come up to the upright position and you skate again. So you're moving your hands and your leg outside of your base of support. So that challenges the ankle to balance you. And then for the lunges or the squat, we added elastic, and just using the elastic overhead to make both the squat and the lunge with overhead harder to do. All right, a little bit about safety is common sense, really, I think. You know, most people actually err on the side of being too safe and not pushing themselves very hard, which I think starting out is very good, because you just minimize your risk of injury that way. Just do what you think you can do, what you want to do, but get in the routine of doing it regularly. You know, if you have what would be considered medical problem, shortness of chest or shortness of breath, pain in your chest, vertigo, lightheadedness, nausea, yeah, talk to a health professional. What am I doing wrong? Sharp pain is always a bad sign. And holding your breath. You should always be able to carry on a conversation when you're doing your exercise. If you can't carry on a conversation, then you're probably working too hard. And the other hand, if you're singing a song, you're probably working too easily. Sharp pain is bad, but it's reasonable to expect some achiness, some soreness, which should be in the muscle, not in the joint. Soreness in the joint is too much, too quick. Soreness in the muscle is called DOMS, delayed onset of muscle soreness. It's typically worse the second day after exercise. And that just is a result of the metabolic process going on in the muscle. And it is an indication that you're working at a right level to get strengthening in the muscle. But joint pain really should be avoided. And it's not exactly no pain, no gain. It's that, you know, a reasonable amount of soreness in the muscle is okay. But sharp pain and joint pain are not okay. And this sticking with it really is the key. It's not what you do today or tomorrow or next week. It's, are you still doing it a year from now? That really should be your goal. Majority of people start out way too hard, push themselves, are going to get in shape. And, you know, by the second or third week, just say, this is way too hard. I'm not doing this. You know, and that's why you start out low, go slow, you know, make a commitment to somebody that matters. And that's the thing about group exercise. Those other people there in the same boat you're in, they know how hard it is to keep going. And they're encouraging you. You know, you weren't at class yesterday, we missed you, you know, are you coming today? That's why I think group exercise is so good. And if it's not a group, you know, 2, 3, 4 people together, if that's the size of the group, that still counts. And, you know, missing a day is not a big deal. Taking a day off is not a big deal. I'm really too tired today, I'm taking today off. It's not going to affect anything. It's, are you still exercising a year from now, and the year after that, and the year after that? Well, here's the test. You understand the role of strength and aging? You know the 2 criteria for a successful strengthening program? Can you identify strengthening exercises? And do you know what the strategies are to stick to the exercise program?
Okay.
So I'm gonna take questions. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen and go back.
Well, you're on. It's okay. We can see your face. That's okay.
Okay.
It's not so bad to see your face. I'll be on too. So I'm sad to say, I'm not too sure I know the 2 criteria for strength. Can you just repeat
Okay.
that again? Because
Yep.
I know I took notes and everything.
Yep.
But I'm not
So
positive.
that's the specificity that what you're doing relates to what your goal is, and overload. You got to reach that stimulus above what the tissue normally does. Those are the 2 criteria for successful exercise program. Does it match up with what your goal is, and is it hard enough? Specificity and overload.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get that. Sadly.
I tell you.
And I'm curious also, Patrick, are you in the fun category now?
I'm in the fun category,
Are you?
but I am, but I'm at the low end of the fun category.
Hmm.
You know,
That's good.
I'm still skiing, biking, you know, I box with my folks. I do all the exercises with them. But there are days when I cannot go as long as I want to go.
Yeah, that was the point, I think, that got me. I mean, it's one thing to be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, if you have the time and the equipment or the geographic area or whatever. But the other thing of doing it for as long as you want to, that's a tough one, I think, you know, as you age.
I agree with you.
I'm glad you're in the fun category. That's inspiring. I hope that inspires everyone, because it's possible also, or I want to ask you this question. It's possible also, if you're in the functional area, to move back towards the fun area, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that, what we see in our people with Parkinson's disease, when they first come in, they experience about a 30% improvement in function.
Wow.
And I don't believe that that's a reversal of the disease. I believe it's a reversal of the disuse associated with the disease.
Wow. 30%.
So their balance improves by 30%, their strength, their speed improves by 30%. And that is pretty consistent. We get people above and below that, but that's a pretty reliable number.
Gregory, did you want
Yes.
to ask a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. Should he do the exercises all at one time, or should he do it? Can you break it up during the day?
When you start out, you can break it up during the day. Your long-term goal, though, should be to bring it all together, because that increases intensity and improves outcome.
Oh, really?
Okay, thank you. Okay.
You mean the 30 minutes, basically,
Yeah, so-
Patrick, you mean?
Correct.
Okay, so starting
Correct.
off with 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is that you can do is
Yep.
appropriate if you're at that level.
Yep.
But the goal would be to do 30 minutes at one time or more, I guess.
Correct.
If you could.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would say you'd probably be shooting for 5 to 7 hours of exercise a week.
Okay.
So an hour a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So-
That's a lot.
So that means you do about an hour of exercises every day, or
That's what I
45
would
minutes?
say, yeah. I would say, yeah, at least 45. I would say an hour a day.
But Patrick, that could include walking your dog, for instance, right? Taking
Yes,
a
it
walk with
could.
a friend,
Yep.
going
Yep.
around the block. Right,
Yep.
because, you know, and I find, I recommend people as they age to get a dog, because it, not only for the socialization, but the, you know, it kind of forces you to exercise and, you know,
Mhm.
on a daily basis. So, okay, so it's not just an hour a day of cardio, whatever it is you're gonna
No,
do.
not you lift weights for a whole hour a day. You might stretch a little bit, you might balance a little bit, you might lift some weights, you might walk, but that total about an hour a day. Yeah.
Oh, that's the total. Okay. But
Yeah.
continuously you said half an hour. Continuously? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, if you can get there. I mean, not all,
But-
like you said, not all at once, but little by little.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. And if you try to do it all at once, you're just going to discourage yourself.
Yeah,
So just spread it out, and your goal really increase your physical activity first. Get going first. And then, at some point it may be, all right, this Wednesday, I'm going to make sure my total exercise time all day long is a full hour. And then 3 months later, I'm going to have 2 days where I have a full hour. So
Hmm.
you're not going to make that transition all at once.
Oops, here comes my cat.
Yeah, I
So-
have one of those too around here.
I know. He usually pops in occasionally for meetings. So I had one other question, Rhythm, sorry. That right from the beginning, you were talking about the different types of exercise. And you said, I think more than once, that aerobic exercise equals longevity.
Correct.
And then other types of exercise like strengthening and agility or flexibility equals quality of life. So
Mhm.
is it so that if you don't do aerobic activity, you'll have a better quality of life, but live not quite so long? Is that really what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Because aerobic exercise is cardiopulmonary. You're increasing your respiratory system and your heart system. And the strengthening exercises, that would include balance and some flexibility. That directly relates to function.
Hmm.
So, you get, and that's why we say you walk a little bit, you lift some weights, you balance a little bit, you kind of round that out. Eventually, and you have to qualify like walking. So if you walk and you just, laze along slowly, that's not going to have much of a strengthening effect. But if you're walking like a 15 or less miles per hour, if you're pushing yourself walking, that's going to have a strengthening effect. And the
It could
same
have
with
an aerobic
weightlifting.
effect.
If you weightlift and you move through the exercises quickly and you get a little out of breath doing that, that's going to have an aerobic effect. So it's not completely pure. It spills over.
So what is a good, or can you give us an example of a good beginning aerobic exercise or activity? Is it
Mhm.
like walking? Because you could walk really
is.
fast to sort of raise your heart rate or.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So
I would say walking is a good initial aerobic activity.
Okay. Oh, I thought I heard someone talking. I don't know if they're on the class or not. So you're not saying that because when people hear aerobic activity, at least in my generation, I'm thinking, oh my God, it's jumping jacks and and that sort of thing, which I think
No.
if somebody engaged in, at least initially, you'd be falling into that category of, oh dear, too much, too fast, I give up. So
Exactly.
so you're an advocate of just sort of easing into the aerobic
Yeah.
activity as well. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Very, very good. Okay. Rhythm. All right. So anyone on the class have any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Mhm.
How long should you wait after you have your meal to exercise?
What kind of exercise you're going to do?
Aerobic or walking or,
I would probably give it a half hour.
okay.
If you're doing weightlifting, balancing, and that, you really don't have to wait because you're not really creating a need You know, the problem with eating is your blood goes to your gut, but you don't need a lot of blood to do some of the other flexibility exercises. But if you're walking, you need some of that blood in your heart and your lungs. So within a half hour, you know, it depends. You have a huge meal, probably have to wait an hour. You're just, and I mean, you're not going to do any damage. You're just going to be uncomfortable.
Is there any good time to exercise in the evening or morning or midday?
When you will do it consistently. And I'll tell you, there are people who just can't exercise at the end of the day, and there are people who just can't exercise in the morning. You know, I was always morning. I first thing out of bed, do it, get it done. And I always did. I don't think that means that's the best time. That was the best time for me. So if you're better later in the day, that's when you do it.
Thank you.
I'm definitely better later in the day.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not a morning exerciser.
And I don't know of any studies that have actually looked at it, but my guess is if you like exercising later in the day and you try to do it early, you're not going to sustain it. You gotta put as many things in your favor as you possibly can. You know, the more you like the activity you're doing, the more you like the people you're doing it with, the place that you're going to, the time of day, the more likely you are to stick with it. So
Right.
remove as many of the barriers as you possibly can.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I certainly hope that we will all do a little more activity this week. I don't know. I know I'm more inspired, and I'll definitely do the sit to stands more often during the day. And I love the idea of exercising during a commercial break. Like I have a stepper that I don't do this consistently, Patrick, but I try, you know, when I'm really feeling it to get up and do the stepper during the commercials, you know, and that
Yeah.
actually raises my heart rate too, you know,
Yep.
because you're going,
Yep.
really? Is it not over yet? Is it not over yet? And yeah, really, it's tough to do. And then the other commercial comes up too fast and I go, oh, no, not again. But if I could do that consistently, boy, that would, I'm sure, really make a difference because I've got it right in the living room. But I really like that idea and that tip. And I love the idea of when you're brushing your teeth to try the balancing exercise, because you have the sink there if you need to. When you're standing at the stove, when you're doing the dishes, anything like that, to do that, because I think that's really just an excellent way to add it into your day without having to say, good, I'm going to take 10 minutes now to do balancing exercises, which can be really tough. So, I can't thank you enough for your time, Patrick.
It was very enjoyable.
You have such positive energy, and you're such a role model, and everyone wants to get to the fun point and stay there as long as possible. And so it's nice to have someone who's there, you know, telling us, helping us to develop any kind of regular routine to help us get there as well. So, and I will be sending out a follow-up email to you all, and I'll let you know. I'll send out, if it's okay, Patrick, the PowerPoint presentation. Is that okay to give to folks?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
If you can send it to me, I'll send that out. Probably not till Friday, folks, because I have a lot going on tomorrow, and anything else that we come up with. Now, also, Patrick, I mean, you can mention that at Empower, there is a lot, you know, you do a lot of exercise classes there. I mean, specifically for individuals with Parkinson's, right? Or people who are living with Parkinson's. So if there's anyone on, or if you know of anyone who's on, it's a great way to get into a group. Because I always found that being in a group, it's not that other people encouraged me, but I didn't want to stop because I would be embarrassed. Oh my God, they're going. I'm not going to stop. You know, It really pushes you to go to the extra level. So, you know, so that's a good thing too. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all, Patrick, so very much. I look forward to being able to do this in person in the fall. And I know that you'll be willing to do that. So thank you so much. I hope you have a fabulous night, everybody. Good night. Stay well.